Hey everybody, I'm Jesse, and welcome to another edition of Gen X Thinks. And today I'm going to talk about the 8 things that a Gen Xer will never do. But before I get into that, I'd like to say hi to Emily's parents. Emily has been a subscriber for quite a while now, and I think she's a millennial, maybe Gen Z. I forget. I think she mentioned it in the comments months and months ago, but I can't quite remember. I know she's not a Gen Xer. She's the child of Gen Xers, which she refers to as mom and dad. So I just want to say, she says y'all watch the channel, so I want to say hi to Emily's mom and dad. Yeah, and the 8 things that you won't catch a Gen Xer doing. No, and I'm going to count these down, right down to the top one. Number 8 is expect a trophy for showing up to work on time. Gen Xer's not gonna expect a round of applause or some shit when they finally show up to work on time. I actually have a story about that. I had this one young kid working with me, and he had that habit. He just could not make it to work on time. I mean, 45 minutes, an hour late every single day. And I would, get after him about it. And he had actually asked me for 2 raises since I started. I started him low because he didn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. But he needed more money, and so I gave him raises every time he asked for them, which was twice. So, but he would not show up to work on time. And finally, after, he worked with me for a couple months, I think. And I just got fed up with it. And I just told him, you have got to show up to work on time. That's part of what we do, is show up on time. It just doing the work is only part of it. People expect you to show up on time. They don't want to wait around, an hour for you to finally arrive. That's going to piss people off, and they're not going to call us back. And this kid got upset and told me word for word, "You do not pay me enough to do that." All right. I did not pay him enough, according to him, to show up to work on time. That is the bare minimum, the absolute bare minimum requirement of having a job, is showing up when, in the morning when you're supposed to be there, or whatever, if it's a night job, showing up at a certain time. All right. That is the bare minimum requirement. And I didn't pay him enough to do that. That just blew my mind, But I've kept that in my head, that's their mentality. Those kids, that's their mentality. They think that is a big deal. They think that the bare minimum requirement is a big deal to them. It's insane, But yeah, so Gen Xers realize that that's the bare minimum requirement, and it's not a big deal to show up to work on time. We don't think we deserve a round of applause or any special treatment because we managed to show up to work on time. So yeah, that's one thing you'll never catch us doing, is expecting anything special for doing the bare minimum in anything, in any category. Number 7, you'll never catch us using adulting as a verb. Okay, adulting. That to me, that just sounds ridiculous. I've heard that for a while. I think that's millennials that are saying that. Oh, we're adulting and shit. That just sounds like kids during playtime. Hey, kids, come and eat. Oh, we're adulting right now. We're playing house and shit. For grown-up adults to say they're adulting, that just really sounds weird and really absurd to me. That's just living life. That's just being alive. I'm sitting there, reading a book on my couch or whatever, and that's adulting because I'm an adult and I'm breathing in and out and I'm conscious and aware. That's adulting. So so you're not going to catch Gen X playing that shit or saying that shit using adulting as a verb. That's that just sounds stupid, really. So yeah, there's that. And here's one I can. Number 6 is one that I can relate to because I've seen this a few times, and it's clap your hands when the plane lands. You know, if you've been on a plane when people do that, and when I was young, last time I really flew on a plane was in the early '90s, so it was boomers doing that shit. You know, I was in the military. I was a young kid, 19 years old, and people started clapping when the plane landed. So that's been a thing for a while, and it was boomers that were doing that shit. And you know, it just seemed odd to me. Like, what the hell are people doing? What is everybody clapping for? You know, it just seemed really retarded to me. You know. Are they just happy to be alive? Did they expect the plane to crash into a mountain or something? What the hell? What is this? You know, what are they clapping, applauding the pilot like he just scored a touchdown or something for their home team? I don't know, but it just seemed really bizarre to me to be clapping when the plane landed. So I don't know. But that's one of the things that, and maybe that's just me. Maybe I just think that shit's bizarre, you know. So let me know in the comments if you're a clapper, you know, if you're one of those clappers when the plane lands. Do you clap as a Gen Xer, or are you like me looking around at these people, you know, wondering what the hell is going on? Let's see, number 5. Oh yeah, I like number 5. Gen X will never start a sentence with "my therapist says." You won't hear that not out of a true Xer. You might hear, you know, not a true Gen Xer is not going to start a sentence with those damn words. Yeah, even if we do need a little therapy, we will keep that shit down, you know, on the down low. We keep that shit under wraps. We don't go, you know, broadcasting that shit to everybody. Oh, my therapist says, you know, that I need to, you know, I need to squeeze some alfalfa sprouts and chew on some ginseng bark or whatever, you know. And get in touch with my oneness inside, whatever that whole, you know, tree hugging hippie flower child shit is. So yeah, Gen X isn't going to do that. If we do go to therapy, we're not going to celebrate that shit and advertise that shit and brag about it. That's for damn sure. Not saying that therapy doesn't help some people, but even if it does, a Gen Xer is not gonna brag about that shit. And number 4 is ask AI for life advice. Gen Xer is not gonna ask AI for life advice. I don't care. You could probably, you know, a Gen Xer would rather just crash and burn and learn from experience than ask AI for life advice. After Sarah Connor showed us what the hell AI wants to do to us, we would have to be insane to ask AI for, you know, advice like that. You know, maybe if you're technologically, you know, savvy and you like technology and AI and stuff, I get that. But, you know, then you ask it for help coding or for some, you know, for some factual evidence or something, you know, or something about a subject that you don't know, but for advice on your life, for personal advice on how to live your life, to trust that to a computer, no, not me, and I don't think any other Gen Xer is gonna do that shit. We don't want, you know, what was it, Cyberdyne Systems telling us how to live? Hell no. No, I'll just go ahead and make my mistakes on my own and learn on my own. I'm fine with that. I'm cool with that, yeah. Number 3, expect participation trophies. Yeah, Gen X doesn't expect participation trophies. We never have and we never will. We grew up where, you know, if you weren't good enough to make the damn team, you rode the bench and you didn't get a trophy. You know, if your team didn't win, you didn't get a trophy. If you weren't good enough to finish, in the top 3 of the race, you didn't get a trophy. Your ass came in dead last and you got nothing. What did you do? Well, if you really loved running or whatever, or basketball or whatever it was, you worked hard over the summer to improve. You ran your ass off over the summer, and the next year you did better. That is the method of improvement. That is how humanity has improved throughout history. But now all of a sudden everybody gets the same. So if it's just all of that equality on outcome, you know what I mean? Everybody gets the same equal outcome, not based on how hard they work or how hard they try or any of that stuff. Just as long as you show up, you get. And with Oregon and the education system now, all you have to do is show up and you graduate high school. You don't have to write a lick. You don't have to learn anything. You don't have to pass a single test. Literally, I'm not joking. And you graduate high school. This kind of stuff is just abhorrent to Gen X. We grew up where you should at least put in some effort to get something, and nothing is for free. Anything that's labeled for free, we've learned that there are strings attached to it, and they come at a cost, right? So all these participation trophies and all this equality of outcome bullshit, no, that's not the Gen X way. And I hope it never will be. I hope the younger kids get some kind of motivation to do better at some point. Number 2, Gen X. You won't catch a Gen Xer watching the news. we don't watch the news. Well, we might watch the news for educational purposes, right? To check out what lies are being told. So let me rephrase that. You won't catch us believing anything the news tells us, okay? Because even if we do watch the news once in a while, just out of curiosity about what kind of lies they're spouting today. So if we do that, then at least we know that there are lies. Like the boomers, they're still watching the news and they still think that they're telling the truth to the people. They honestly do. They believe that shit. And that's not the Gen X way. We question everything, literally everything. Hopefully even ourselves and the people we voted for. We question everything. And number 1, call the cops. Gen X does not call the 5-0. We don't need the police in our lives in any way. Number 1, we've lived long enough to realize that 99% of the time, police will only exacerbate a situation. They will never make a situation better, almost always worse, right? So if there's some kind of fist fight or something, it could have been settled with somebody getting knocked down or something. But if the police showed up, there's the probability of that becoming a life and death situation skyrockets now. The police show up and now there's a real possibility of someone dying, and there was almost no possibility before they showed up. They show up and people are hot-tempered. They're already pissed off. You got a broken nose because you got in a fist fight and the police start manhandling you or whatever. And so no, we do not call the police. Well, I don't anyway. For one, I have never called the police in my life. Not once. Literally, not once have I ever called the police. I never. It doesn't cross my mind. Even in a situation which I have found myself in a couple of times, I'm not some asshole running around, gang banging and getting in fights or whatever all the time. But you find yourself in a sketchy situation once in a while, and but it never crossed my mind to call the police. That wasn't my first option, was, 911, get me out of here, please, the government is not our friend. They're not our daddy. They're not here to protect us. And Gen X understands this, and I don't need the police. I've heard too many stories about the police showing up to like a fight or something and just arresting everybody, right? Everybody standing around. There'll be two people in a fight and two witnesses. Well, the witnesses get arrested too. I've heard that many times. And there was one story where a guy and his girlfriend went to his girlfriend's mother's house, okay? And they're there for a few minutes or whatever, and just stopped by her house on the way somewhere or whatever. And the girlfriend's brother shows up. I don't know, he's a crackhead or something or whatever, and the girlfriend gets mad at her brother, and they start arguing and shit. Well, she pushes him, and he pushes her back, and she falls down. Well, the mother calls the police. Police show up. They arrest the brother and sister and the boyfriend. Now, when the cop is cuffing the boyfriend, he's saying, what the hell? I didn't do anything. I was just standing here. I'm a witness. It's shit. It's a brother and sister. They were just, arguing, a family little spat. And the brother and sister told him, he wasn't involved. It was us. We were arguing and fighting. He was just standing there on the porch. The mother who called the police told the police he wasn't involved. The police said, we don't care. They put him in the cruiser, took the poor bastard to jail. All right. And then when they brought them all into court, they did it again and told the judge, yeah, he didn't have anything to do with it. All three of them stood up and said he didn't have anything to do with it. The judge says, well, I got to go with the word of the officer. And found the dude guilty and, and sentenced him or whatever. So that's the kind of shit I'm talking about, where the police, innocent people get wrapped up in shit. You call the police, you might be the one to, there's a good probability that you're the one you get wrapped up in and you get hauled to jail too. They're not about protecting and serving and all this shit like it's written on their car. I mean, and don't get me wrong, there are some good cops out there, and maybe most of them are good. And we only hear the horror stories. We only hear the bad stories from the dickheads who arrest innocent people and stuff. Because I've been pulled over quite a few times for little bullshit, speeding and, whatever. I didn't come to a full stop or whatever. And the cop could have easily given me a ticket, but they were just cool. Hey, man, you got to come to a stop, dude. There's a stop sign there. It says stop right there. The big letters at the big red sign. You got to stop. I know, officer. What am I going to say? All right, go ahead, get out of here. Just come to a stop next time. That type of thing. So I know there are good cops out there, and probably we only hear the horror stories about the bad ones, the few bad ones. But I just feel like if I were to call the cops, there's a 99.999% chance that the bad one would show up. You know what I'm saying? So, no, I'll handle my business myself. I'll take care of my shit myself. I don't depend on the cops. And I think that is a Gen X trait, because I've heard many times in the comments from subscribers, wait, no, I don't call, we don't call the cops. No, that's not even an option. That's not even the nuclear option. You know what I'm saying? Calling the cops isn't even on the table. Yeah, there's no red 911 button that we hit at the end. No, that's not even in the situation. All right. And that was the final one. I hope y'all enjoyed this. I like talking about Generation X. I'm a hardcore Gen Xer. I love my generation. I love my people. We all came from the same place in the same time, and it's awesome. I love us. I love Generation X. I love who we are, what we stand for, what we believe. Gen X rules, and I'll leave you there with that. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you'd like to become a member of Gen X Thinks and get your name on the banner down here, I invite you to do that. Help support the channel that way. That's a great thing. It's so helpful. I just appreciate all of the members down here. Some of them have been supporting the channel for a long time now, and the amount of appreciation I have for these people just is, there aren't enough words. So thank you very much. But I'll put that link down in the description if you're interested, or you can head over to the channel page and become a member that way. If you want to support the channel directly, you can do so by clicking on that super thanks button down there, or you can hit the hype button. That's a new thing to help smaller channels, you know, get noticed, and so that's a way you can help Gen X Thinks and support the channel and help me grow. Hopefully that's a great thing. It's something YouTube's doing, which I appreciate as a smaller channel. So thank you very much to those of you who do that. I really do appreciate it. And if you have any ideas for future episodes of Gen X Thinks, you can put those down in the comments, or you can email us, and the email is genxthinks@gmail.com. And as always, stay frosty, Gen X, and I'll see you on the next one.